They are, yeah.
Nice, nice touch.
They weren't exactly the socks I was going to wear for this portion of the day, but it's a little slushier out, and so I didn't want to change. Ugh. Well, I was wearing white runners for most of the day,
Okay.
so...
Okay.
Oh, mine is not doing what I wanted to do, so it's good.
The views, information, and opinions expressed during the following program are solely those of the individuals involved and do not necessarily represent the views of Access Communications, its representatives, or its employees.
Good evening, everyone. On behalf of the Yorkton Chamber of Commerce, I welcome everyone to the All Candidates Forum for the federal election in Yorkton and Melville constituency. My name is Neil Shaw. I'm the Yorkton Chamber President. The Chamber is a nonpartisan organization which does not lend its support to any of the candidates. Chambers across the province have held or will be holding similar forums in order for the public and especially the business community to meet the candidates and learn about their views on the issues and opportunities facing the city. We thank the 4 candidates who have agreed to participate in the forum. An invitation was extended to all candidates who are running in the riding, but the 5th candidate indicated she was unavailable to attend this evening. The Chamber commends all the candidates for caring enough about the future of this country to let their names stand in this election. The Chamber hopes that you will enjoy the format of this forum and extends its appreciation to the Rock 98.5 FM and AccessNow for broadcasting this event. I now have the pleasure of introducing our moderator for this evening, Doug Forrester. Doug is a director of the Yorkton Chamber of Commerce, and this is his first opportunity to serve as a moderator. So please join me in welcoming Doug Forrester.
Thank you, Sonny. Good evening, everyone. As Sunil just said, it's our pleasure on behalf of the Yorkton Chamber to welcome you here tonight for the federal election. It's coming. You've been watching the ads on TV for the last month, and I think there's not a person in this room that's not ready for this election to happen, including our 4 candidates that have joined us here tonight. Just a few housekeeping things. We would like to ask everybody in attendance just to be courteous to our candidates here tonight. It is a big job to sit up here and to take the questions and to be live like it is. There's a few of us in the building here that have had the opportunity, and if you think it's easy, I would say then the next time you have the opportunity, you should give it a try if you think it's that easy to do. So please be mindful and respectful of all 4 of our individuals here tonight. Again, thank you to AccessNow TV. We've got the crew here tonight. We're broadcasting live, and as well, our friends from the Rock 98.5 are carrying it as well. So those people at home that are watching and listening, we welcome you as well as we welcome everybody else to the Ann Portneuf Theatre here at the Regional High School. So with the election fast approaching April 28th, this is an opportunity for these candidates to answer some questions they're predetermined questions, but there is going to be an opportunity if you would like to ask a question and you're out tonight in our gallery. We will have some members of the chamber running around. Juanita is in fact doing that right now, and we will get some questions, and your opportunity is to pass those up, and we've got some more chamber directors, behind me that will be vetting those questions to ensure that they're fair questions, and those questions will apply to all 4 candidates, not just singling one out. All 4 will answer the same question. How this is going to work here tonight is each candidate will have 3 minutes of opening remarks. I will be watching the timers. The timers are down in front. We have a few more directors, Corey and Gurjeet, sitting in front here with some time cards. A green card means 2 minutes have elapsed. A yellow card means 2.5 minutes have elapsed. And when a red card comes up, you're done, and I will interrupt you. Since your candidates are aware of that. Green's 2 minutes, yellow 2.5, red, I will interrupt you, and we will move on. A random draw happened before this here tonight, so everybody will have an opportunity to answer a question first, and last. It just works in a rotation, and that's how that works. So it's pretty straightforward. It's not really a complicated process, but we are going to keep it moving. We're going to roll it right along so we can get through a lot of pertinent information here tonight and a lot of questions. So without further ado, I'm going to get things started. We'll start off with our opening remarks tonight. And our first opening remarks is from our Liberal candidate, Luc Gamon. Luc?
Good evening, bonsoir Tansy. My name is Luc Guimont. I am the Liberal candidate here in Yorkton, Melville. Something that I'm very happy to be doing and excited to be doing. So from a very young age, my parents instilled in me a sense of public service. They got me involved in my local parish and in community groups like the Scouts, and taught me to give back to my community, to my province, and to my country. And that's why I'm here today, this evening, with you all as your Liberal candidate seeking election next Monday. Despite having grown up in Regina, I do have deep family connections to Yorkton, Melville. My dad grew up here. My grandparents and numerous family members still call this a wonderful riding home. A lot of my formative memories were here in Yorkton, Melville, exploring the prairie landscape. And truly, this is where the province has marked me the most. The beautiful prairies that we have, I have taken them in my memory with me everywhere that I've gone in this world and compare everything to our wonderful province. I think there's a lot for us to be very proud of here in Saskatchewan. And that comes back down to the sense that we are all part of a community. And I think for me, I chose to become a Liberal because of this sense of community and the sense of taking care of each other. That, to me, is what it means to be a Saskatchewanian, and that is why I'm here to foster a sense of community. Now, I think that the Liberal Party has a strong record for the past 10 years in numerous programs, such as the Canada Child Benefit, which has lifted hundreds of thousands of children out of poverty, an amazing accomplishment that I hope we can continue if we are lucky enough to form the next government. Now, in a time of crisis, of course, we need a leader with real-world experience, somebody who is able to manage the economy, and we need a leader from the prairies, a leader who is instilled with the values of this place, of Western Canada, and that leader is Mark Carney. Now, most likely, Mrs. Wagenthal, you're going to win next Monday. However, and I thank you for your public service. Look, I think the Conservatives have taken us for granted. They think they can run up huge majorities in this province, and there's nothing really to show for it. That is not what we need. At a time of crisis, we need somebody who is around the table. We need somebody who is going to be on the team advocating inside for this province. And I hope I can be that person, because we do deserve a seat around the table. We deserve a seat not only around the table, but at the cabinet table. And it's at a time like this, we need to be sending Liberals to Ottawa, and I hope that I can count on your support. Thank you.
I can assure you that the 3 minutes goes by really fast. So, next, speaking on behalf of the Conservative Party of Canada, Kathy Wagenthal.
So yes, I'm Kathy Wagenthal, Conservative Party of Canada candidate, seeking your support to return as your Member of Parliament for the riding of Yorkton Melville. I'm here this evening to encourage you to vote Canada First for a change. Why? Well, because the Carney-Trudeau Liberals are not worth the cost, crime, and corruption of this past decade. They've decimated our economy, demeaned our armed forces, denied Canada's sovereignty, dismissed your values, disdained your freedoms, degraded our history, and damaged our reputation on the world stage. Now, these same Liberals, same members, same ministers, same leadership under Mark Carney with the same Liberal playbook of the last 10 years want you to give them a fourth term. Now is the opportunity you need, your children and your grandchildren need, if we are going to recover, restore, and rejuvenate Canada to a brand new level of prosperity and independence. Yes, Trump has raised the stakes even higher with unjustified tariff attacks and threats to our sovereignty. And that's why our determination to stick with our message and not pivot has been so well received. Conservatives will never give up our independence, our freedom, or our future to Trump or to a self-described world elitist hand-picked successor of the Liberal Party. It's more important than ever that we bring it home. I'm looking forward to answering your questions this evening that give us a glimpse into our fully costed platform that was released today that will rebuild this country with a common sense plan to axe taxes, build the homes, stop crime, and fix the budget. We will bring home our jobs, unlock our energy, reward hard work, and restore safe streets. We'll empower our entrepreneurs, unleash our industries, and stand up for our workers. We'll protect our borders, rebuild our military, and fly our beautiful flag with pride. We will cut the Liberal deficit by 70% with less spending on bureaucracy, consultants, foreign aid, and handouts to insiders and special interests while boosting growth with resource jobs. Lower income tax by 15%, saving the average worker $900 and the average working family $1,800. We are going to build 2.3 million homes by axing home sales taxes, paying cities to cut other taxes to save $100,000, selling off federal land while keeping gatekeepers out of the way to speed up home building for those who have thought there's no hope. We are going to lock up criminals to make you safe. Put Canada first for a change through our plan to rebuild our economy, open new markets so that we can reduce our reliance on the U.S. and stand up to Trump from a position of strength. We're ready to govern and bring home the promise of Canada.
Thank you, Kathy. Now, speaking on behalf of the Green Party, Valerie Brooks.
Good evening, audience members, fellow candidates, and the Yorkton Chamber of Commerce. I'd like to acknowledge we are treaty people, and we are all beneficiaries of treaties and are obligated to uphold the intent and promises held in the treaties. And we are here tonight on Treaty 4 land on Earth Day. I'm Valerie Brooks, and I have deep roots in this riding. And I'm committed to helping make this part of Canada a place where we can all be proud
by Kathy Wagenthal, followed by Alex Guggenmoss, sorry Alex, and wrapping it up will be Luc Guimond, our Liberal candidate. Question number 1, and a reminder again, you do have 2 minutes, and we will be prompting you with our timers down front. As well, you'll hear my voice behind you to tell you that you're getting close to the time. So here we go with question number 1. If elected to represent the Yorkton-Melville riding, how will you ensure the interests of your constituents are represented? Again, I'll repeat that. If elected to represent the Yorkton-Melville riding, how will you ensure the interests of your constituents are represented? Starting us off tonight in third place, our third candidate will be...
Was that a
Yeah,
projection?
Listen, it's my first time.
It's okay.
Starting us off with that question will be Valerie Brooks.
Thanks. First, I would establish multiple ways for constituents to communicate with me, including website, email, phone, and in-person options, and I would provide those to the municipal governments in the riding to publicly display and distribute in their communities. Second, I would hold town hall meetings in every corner of the riding upon getting elected to listen to the constituents and understand their ideas and concerns. Of foremost importance to me are the constituents who no longer vote, have never voted, or are disengaged from the act of participating in their democracy. I feel those voices have long been suppressed and deserve my fair time and attention. Third, I pledge to respond to every constituent after thoroughly reviewing the issue they have, the research, the history and experts on the subject, to work at finding the best possible avenue available to pursue. Fourth, I will always be transparent and honest. Constituents will always know what I'm working on, why, and the progress I'm making. Green MPs work for the riding first and are never whipped or made to toe a party line on any issue. Therefore, we truly are your voice in Ottawa. Fifth and final, I will work with other MPs across party lines on issues that affect our riding, bringing whatever influence I have to the work being done. This riding is large and has many challenges and opportunities. Greens advocate for more local autonomy and resources to allow local municipalities to make decisions that are best for them. I would work for shifting power from being centralized in the Prime Minister's office to being more equitably distributed among the various levels of government, bringing more power to regions and local governments like ours here in the Yorkton-Melville riding. I'm Valerie Brooks, Green Party.
Thank you, Valerie. Again, the question is, if elected to represent the Yorkton-Melville riding, how will you ensure the interests of your constituents are represented? Next up will be our Conservative Party Canada candidate, Kathy Wagenthal.
Well, in the House of Commons and at committee meetings, representing the interests and concerns of those that call the riding of Yorkton-Melville home would continue to be one of my favorite aspects of my responsibilities as newly elected as your member of Parliament. One of the most effective ways of doing so is hosting stakeholders when they come to Ottawa to share their feedback on what they do, how their industry or group that they represent impacts the quality of life of Canadians, as well as what they feel the government needs to do to improve funding or policies that impact their community or role. I'll continue to attend caucus advisory councils where we listen and give perspectives and suggestions based on feedback from our constituents to improve legislation. When legislation is being debated, it always impacts constituents in some way. I love speaking in the House and answering and asking questions there and at committees, representing our riding and our province. With our Saskatchewan caucus and our national caucus weekly meetings, we have opportunity to bring the concerns or questions to the floor of those meetings that we feel need to be addressed or to provide helpful information to our peers. We have an amazing team, and I know this atmosphere will continue as we carry the responsibility of restoring and growing opportunities for Canadians of all walks of life to earn a powerful paycheck, live in good homes in a peaceful community while building healthy lives and relationships at home and abroad. And my staff that are amazing will ensure that I see and hear all concerns voiced at my offices while I also travel the riding to attend events, meet with mayors and councillors and other stakeholders, and also love to spend time one-on-one with individuals at my office. Whatever your political preference, if the riding of Yorkton Melville is your home, I look forward to providing a listening ear, truthful dialogue, your voice in Ottawa, and to be a clear voice from Ottawa to you.
Thank you, Kathy. If elected to represent the Yorkton Melville riding, how will you ensure the interests of your constituents are represented? Next up, we have Alec Guggenmoss, our Libertarian candidate.
As long as Canadians have to deal with our very unfortunate voting system, we should actually have our local representation feel local. When you elect an MP, you aren't just electing a prime minister or a party leader, and you aren't just electing the party an MP represents. You are electing one human being that is to represent our whole riding to the entire rest of Canada. If elected, I wish to spend a significant amount of my time in our riding, meeting with people, so that when I am in Ottawa, I'm not just a member representing the Libertarian Party of Canada, but I am a member of Parliament for Yorkton Melville who just happens to be a part of the Libertarian Party. I want to meet with people. Why? Because no matter how much I appreciate their amount of concern, a lot of the people who contact their MP online or over the phone are those who are the loudest and have the most emotion, even if their opinions are not what the rest of Yorkton Melville wants. I want to give the average person the opportunity to express their concerns so I can best represent them. Also, if you elect me, I won't just be another MP drowned out in a massive caucus. And thankfully, the Libertarian Party has no party whip, and we never will. So I'll be safe to vote for and prioritize what is best for Yorkton Melville without fear. Thank you.
The question, once again, is if elected to represent the Yorkton Melville riding, how will you ensure the interests of your constituents are represented? Next up will be number 1, Luc Guimond for the Liberal Party.
Thanks so much for the question. The most important thing about ensuring that the voices of Yorkton Melville are heard in Ottawa is to make sure that we're getting to the issues that matter to people. We need to be investing in young families, supporting the Canada Child Benefit, investing in childcare so more people can get involved in the economy, to start businesses. We need to be your member of parliament needs to be advocating for farmers, to have a strong voice, especially at this time with the Chinese tariffs, to help combat those, to support our farmers. But most of all, we need to give voice to our way of life as Saskatchewanians on the prairies, making sure that Toronto and Montreal know that we do actually exist and that our interests are just important as when we are crafting legislation. But ultimately, and this is something that Conservative candidate and I will probably disagree about, we do need to reinforce CBC Radio-Canada. It is a vital resource in rural Canada for Canadians on the radio or on TV, et pour tous les francophones et francophiles. And especially at this time, it is a way to strengthen our Canadian identity, to define who we are. This is what I would do to represent the interests of Yorkton Melville, bringing a strong voice for Saskatchewan, for our farmers, for our young families, and to make sure that our way of life is heard in Ottawa. Thank you.
Thank you, Luke. All right, moving right along with question number 2. The order for this set of questions will be first Kathy Wagenthal, second Luc Guimond, third, Alec Guggenmoss, and answering fourth for this question will be Valerie Brooks. The question, if your party is elected, how and when will it deal with the tariffs currently imposed on canola, peas, and hogs? Once again, I'll repeat that. If your party is elected, how and when will it deal with the tariffs currently imposed on canola, peas, and hogs? First up, Kathy Wagenthal.
Thank you. Well, the canola industry has been built on the premise of free trade. Yorkton, Melville being the canola capital of Canada, I have sat and had many face-to-face meetings and conversations with a number of farmers in our riding who are very frustrated over China's 100% tariff on canola oil and meal in retaliation to the Liberal government's duties on their EVs, aluminum and steel. The U.S. is our top Canadian canola export market with $7.7 billion in 2024, but in January they announced the canola-based biofuel no longer qualified for the critical fuels production credit, impacting our canola crushing processors' ability to compete. The Canadian tariffs on Chinese EVs, steel and aluminum were a legitimate response to illegal Chinese dumping, unfair trading practices, and national security concerns. However, the Liberal government's imposition of EVs by 2030, spending billions of tax dollars investing in the production, their $5,000 rebates on purchases recently cancelled, have failed to address the impact of our two largest canola trading partners, China and the U.S., disrupting established market access, influencing commodity prices, and impacting the competitiveness of Canadian agriculture exports. With the impact of years of punitive carbon tax on agriculture production and transportation, and the looming threat of a shadow carbon tax on the agriculture industry if Mark Carney becomes Prime Minister, then the Liberal mandate on canola growers to lower fertilizer to invest while also expecting them to grow greater yields for biofuels, while hundreds of farmers are very concerned about investing thousands of dollars in fertilizer and seed in a matter of weeks from now to be overwhelming. We will completely remove the consumer carbon tax off everything permanently, lift the cap on Canada Energy and axe the carbon industrial tax, and will open new export markets for Canadian-grown food so farmers are less vulnerable to Beijing's constant retaliatory actions against our exports.
Thank you, Kathy. If your party is elected, how and when will it deal with the tariffs currently imposed on canola, peas, and hogs? Next up will be Luc Guimond.
In addition to opening up new markets for canola and other agricultural products, we do need to be removing internal trade barriers. We are one economy, not 13, and this is something that we have pledged to do by June of this year. Something that the Liberal Party has also pledged to do in the agri-food space is to make permanent the doubling of revenue protection for farmers under the Agri-Stability Program, so from $3 million to $6 million per farm. We have also pledged to increase supports to access new markets, an additional $30 million in the agri-marketing program. And something that we are also pledging to do is to extend the extended railway interswitching pilot by 3 years and exclude non-Canadian railways, because we need to be focusing on the Canadian economy, especially at this point when our largest trading partner has decided to turn its back on us, and very much we need a Canada-strong approach. Thank you.
Thank you, Luke. Repeat the question once again. If your party is elected, how and when will it deal with the tariffs currently imposed on canola, peas, and hogs? Next up is Alec Guggenmoss.
I will fight to end the very initial source of these tariffs. These tariffs impact our riding maybe more than any other riding in the entire country, as all three of these goods are heavily produced within the reaches of Yorkton Melville. These tariffs placed upon us by China, which is the second highest consumer of Canadian canola, the highest consumer of Canadian peas, and the third highest consumer of worldwide pork, were instated due to the Canadian government placing tariffs on Chinese electric vehicles. So our government started this trade war to, as they would say, protect what is a small, still developing industry, which is not unique to Canada, while openly sacrificing our main industries here, which is not only still growing, but is quite unique to our region. Not only does this make it harder for our agricultural goods to get received by the international markets, our tariffs on China also reduce your ability to choose what you wish to drive and increases the prices of all electric vehicles for Canadians. This isn't even mentioning the billions of your tax dollars in corporate subsidies our government is spending on billion-dollar companies to develop these EVs in Canada. I will state to you all now, ending these tariffs and encouraging free trade with the countries that consume the goods produced here in Yorkton, Melville will be one of my highest priorities if you give me the honor of serving as your MP. Thank you.
Thank you, Alec. If your party is elected, how and when will it deal with the tariffs currently imposed on canola, peas, and hogs? Valerie Brooks.
The Green Party will always advocate for fair and sovereign trade agreements negotiated diplomatically. We are committed to a coordinated economic response with international partners like Mexico, Europe, Latin America, Africa, and BRICS plus nations. We would diversify our trade relationships to reduce dependence on any single trading partner, to mitigate the impact of tariffs such as those from the US and China, and provide alternative markets for Canadian agricultural products. For the specific Chinese tariffs imposed on canola, peas, and hogs affecting producers in this area, we call for a review and revision of the current trade restrictions with China to strategically balance our economic and environmental goals. For example, we could negotiate reducing the tariffs we place on Chinese solar panels in exchange for them dropping or significantly reducing the tariffs on canola, peas, and hogs. Protecting Canadian industries is important to the Green Party, and we would implement a Buy Canadian policy that would support producers to find and create new markets here in Canada first. By strengthening domestic supply chains, removing interprovincial barriers, and creating more local food processing and distribution opportunities, we can build economic resilience and insulate Canadian households and agricultural producers from global price shocks due to tariffs. We need to work together to achieve fair and equitable conditions for the agricultural industry quickly and effectively. Greens would remove the ability for corporate lobbyists to dictate government policy and procedures that affect producers in local markets. We would not buckle under the pressure of corporate interests. 15 seconds. Greens care deeply about agriculture and our producers, and I will work to protect the interests of our canola, pea, and hog farmers while supporting the sustainability of those industries in a green economy.
Thank you, Valerie. All right, question number 3 will be answered in the following order. It'll be Valerie Brooks, Luke Guimond, Kathy Wagenthal, and Alec Guggenmoss. Question number 3. If elected, does your party have a plan in place to create special economic zones to attract investment to the country? Once again, if elected, does your party have a plan in place to create special economic zones to attract investment to the country? From the Green Party, Valerie Brooks.
Thanks. First, investing in a green economy will transition us to make significant investments in renewable energy industries, energy efficiencies like retrofitting buildings, and clean tech industries. We envision Canada as a global leader in clean energy, and these policies would attract investment in all of these growing sectors across the nation. In southern Sask, we have the most amount of sunlight per year than any other province. We should have a thriving solar power industry here, lowering costs to consumers. So why don't we? Greens believe in supporting green industries like investments in solar power, battery production, green steel, engineered wood products, and transforming the mining sector into a hub for green technology innovations. Greens would create economic zones by focusing and transitioning economic activity into specific green industries. The Green Party would also prioritize domestic manufacturing and processing. We would create a policy for our natural resources that puts Canada first and returns domestic manufacturing and processing of our raw materials to be done in Canada, replacing the current rip and ship model where foreign corporations have had the luxury of taking our resources and making them into value-added products to sell back to us. If we keep our raw resources here, we create jobs and economic benefits within Canada, again, potentially attracting investment in these economic zones. And lastly, Greens would leverage public procurement and require federal agencies to buy Canadian-made products and services. In this way, we would support localized small businesses and startups, prioritizing public money to those that are working to build a green economy, and clean tech adoption, which would further attract investment in those economic zones. We have a comprehensive and interconnected plan
And that'll
to
do
make
it, Valerie.
Canada great.
All right. If elected, does your party have a plan in place to create special economic zones to attract investment to the country? For the Liberal Party of Canada, Luc Guimond.
Well, I would suggest that this is quite a conservative talking point type of question, to suggest that we haven't built anything, yet it was 10 years of conservative government and 0 meters of pipelines were built. It took a Liberal government to build TMX and to buy it. Liberals are committed to sustainable natural resource extraction, including the construction of pipelines across the country. Now, there is a big difference between us and the Conservatives, and that is that we will work with our partners, both provinces, territories, and Indigenous groups. Our plan is not to impose. Our plan is to collaborate, and that is how we will continue to build. Now, Mark Carney has been very clear that we will have a one-window policy, which is to move us from a why question to a how are we going to get this done question. Moreover, there is the commitment to create a major federal project office which will look after the projects such as pipelines and natural resource extraction and guarantee that all projects are reviewed and approved in a maximum of 2 years and especially faster. Thank you.
Thank you, Luc. If elected, does your party have a plan in place to create special economic zones to attract investment to the country? Next up, for the Conservative Party of Canada, Kathy Wagenthal.
Short answer is yes. We are very excited about creating special economic zones in regard to the wealth that Canada has, that it's ready to go as soon as investors are there rather than them having to catch up because our government is behind. Also, to rebuild investor confidence and attract investment back to Canada, we need to repeal C-69, the No Pipelines or No More Development Law, along with Bill C-48, the tanker ban, both of which Mark Carney has said he will not repeal. And we will create a national energy corridor, a pre-approved transport corridor for pipelines, transmission lines, railways, and critical infrastructure across Canada. And in response to my fellow competitor from the Liberal Party, I can assure you that those 4 pipelines that were ready to go as we lost the election, the Liberal government chose to scrap. And the development of the Mountain Pipeline should never have cost Canadians a single dime. The investment was there, but it left because of the insecurities. And I can tell you that there was another group called the Western Canada Indigenous Group, really qualified to develop and run that particular pipeline, already had the agreement from 13 of the Indigenous groups along that route, ready to go, excited about having a part in being shareholders, not stakeholders in Canada. And they shared their plans with us. All of them, by the way, had international experience. And they shared their approach with us before going to the then finance minister of the Liberal Party, who turned them down.
Thank you, Kathy. If elected, does your party have a plan in place to create special economic zones to attract investment to the country? From the Libertarian Party, Alec Guggenmoss.
I and the Libertarian Party want to essentially make the entire country a special economic zone. Special economic zones around the world have been phenomenal examples of how reducing taxation, streamlining regulations, and free trade can massively improve the economy of these regions and encourage investment. The main concerns that come with special economic zones are how they can end up prioritizing certain regions and their industries over others, once again being an example of the government picking winners and losers in the marketplace. By reducing taxation, streamlining regulations, and implementing free trade nationwide, we can let our market flourish while allowing Canadians to pick and choose the winners and losers in the market and not the special interests of those in our government. Also, by allowing the Canadian market, sectors, and industries to flourish naturally, we will no longer have to have the government use your money to hold up businesses and try to artificially subsidize whoever and whatever they believe is best for all of us, even if it isn't. Central planning does not work. We have years of historical examples of that, while these special economic zones around the world, and thus hopefully all of Canada one day, are and will be examples of free trade and freer market, how free trade and freer markets will always be more effective than central planning. Thank you.
All right. Moving right along, we're going to move into question number 4. The order of which this question will be responded will be Kathy Wagenthal, Alec Guggenmoss, Valerie Brooks, and Luc Guimond. Here's the question. There is concern that the establishment of ecological corridors, which is an initiative of Parks Canada to protect 30% of Canada's land and waters by the year 2030, will infringe on human activities such as farming, ranching, logging, mining, hunting, and the maintenance of roads and railway. If elected, what will your party do to ensure that water, habitat, and wildlife are protected, but not at the expense of food production and commerce? Now that is a wordy question. I will repeat that for you. There is concern that the establishment of ecological corridors, an initiative of Parks Canada to protect 30% of Canada's land and waters by 2030, will infringe on human activity such as farming, ranching, logging, mining, hunting, and the maintenance of road and railways. If elected, what will your party do to ensure the water, habitat, and wildlife are protected, but not at the expense of food production and commerce? First up, from the Conservative Party of Canada, Kathy Wagenthal.
Thank you. Well, Parks Canada launched the National Program for Ecological Corridors in April of 2022 to create links between protected areas and other natural habitats, allowing species to move, interact, and find food and habitat. Sounds good. However, what's missing in this project is the balance between the environment and the economy, where our land and waterways are also sustainable resource areas to produce food for Canadians and the world through our growing, harvesting, value-added production, and exporting of both raw and finished goods to the world. Watersheds across the province are awesome and are working hand in hand with agriculture, making a significant impact on biodiversity by enhancing existing ecological corridors and increasing conservation, and constantly improving regenerative farming methods along with our farmers. We know that our grassland biodiversity is deeply hampered when cattle grazing is limited or removed, for example, and the sequestering capability of the grassroots systems today is now comparable to when the bison roamed because of the depth of those roots that have increased by the grazing systems used by ranchers today. The targeted area in Saskatchewan is the southern Saskatchewan wetlands, lakes, and rivers, centered on Old Wives Lake, Chaplain Lake, and Lake Diefenbaker, extending northeast along the South Saskatchewan River towards the Alberta border, and southeast towards McDonald Lake near Estevan. The Diefenbaker Dam has the potential to irrigate farmland in the southwest area Parks Canada is targeting for an ecological corridor, which would grow the GDP of that area alone by $4 billion annually. This region is historically dry, and Saskatchewan currently only uses 4% of the allowable water flowing through our province to Manitoba. We are looking forward to working with the Agriculture Producers of Saskatchewan Association, other focused stakeholder groups, to improve the lives of our farmers and ranchers while maintaining solid environmental environments.
Thank you, Kathy. There's concern that the establishment of ecological corridors, initiative of Parks Canada to protect 30% of Canada's land and waters by the year 2030, will infringe on human activities such as farming, ranching, logging, mining, hunting, and the maintenance of roads and railways. If elected, what will your party do to ensure that water, habitat, and wildlife are protected, but not at the expense of food production and commerce? Speaking on behalf of the Libertarian Party, Alec Guggenmoss.
Thank you. The federal government should not be encouraging municipal governments to implement more regulations upon private landowners, especially not using the tax dollars of the people to do this. The best way to protect both private property rights while also allowing Canadians to contribute to the protection of the environment and especially the protection of natural regions. That's the best way. Much of the cause of pushback against environmental policy is how it impacts property rights and uses the tax dollars of Canadians. Instead of implementing strict regulations, by allowing landowners to make a wide range of levels of environmentally positive changes to their properties, this changes the culture of environmental protection from one of force and fighting to one of encouragement and help. This change in culture around environmental protection would also be helped by allowing people to contribute their money voluntarily instead of having it taken and then spent by the government. The protection of private property and environmental protections is a fine line, and I and the Libertarian Party understand that people and local organizations can walk that line much better than the federal government. Thank you.
Thank you, Alec. There is concern that the establishment of ecological corridors, an initiative of Parks Canada to protect 30% of Canada's land and waters by 2030, will infringe on human activities such as farming, ranching, logging, mining, hunting, and the maintenance of roads and railways. If elected, what will your party do to ensure that water, habitat, and wildlife are protected, but not at the expense of food production and commerce? From the Green Party of Canada, Valerie Brooks.
Thank you. So we support the Parks Canada initiative and would like to see it expanded to 50% by 2050. Our aim is to protect water, habitat, and wildlife while ensuring sustainable food production and commerce through a variety of integrated and balanced policies. We want ecologically sustainable practices rather than resource extraction at the expense of the environment. We know that a healthy environment is the foundation for a thriving and sustainable economy. So here's how we intend to achieve this balance. Sustainable agriculture. By redirecting government subsidies from industrial agribusiness to small and mid-sized organic farms, growers could reduce their reliance on pesticides and petrochemicals and adopt a low-impact method of agriculture. Prioritizing the long-term health of the land and water is crucial for sustained food production and resilient agricultural systems that can better withstand environmental changes. By supporting localized food systems and regional food hubs, we can reduce transportation impacts and strengthen local economies while ensuring food security. 2, by integrating sustainability with economic activities, we can protect areas by implementing specific conservation agreements. For example, by prioritizing Indigenous-led conservation efforts for forest management, we could ensure carbon sequestration, wildfire resilience, and biodiversity restoration. This could open up opportunities such as ecotourism, balancing ecological integrity with economic benefits. And 3, we would put in place strong regulatory protections to safeguard forests, oceans, and waters from corporate abuses. We would create stronger environmental accountability by applying the principle of polluter pays, ensuring corporations bear the full cost of cleanup and environmental damage. Thank you.
Thank you, Valerie. There is concern that the establishment of ecological corridors, an initiative of Parks Canada to protect 30% of Canada's land and waters by the year 2030, will infringe on human activities such as farming, ranching, logging, mining, hunting, and the maintenance of roads and railways. If elected, what will your party do to ensure that water, habitat, and wildlife are protected, but not at the expense of food production and commerce? From the Liberal Party of Canada, Luc Guimond.
The 30% initiative from Parks Canada also includes prioritizing natural infrastructure, forested areas, wetlands to protect from flooding. And this is the key point, that this program is not just about conserving the planet, but it is also about protecting Canadians. It's protecting Canadians from flooding specifically in a lot of cases. Now, what I find quite interesting here is that we are talking about the conservation of the planet, yet we seem to have a conservative party who is not really interested in conserving our planet. Conservatism has its roots in making sure that we conserve the land we use for our food, yet Pierre Poilievre and his team don't care really about conserving. They just want to exploit without any consequences. What we have here with this project of 30% by 2030 is to make sure that the environment is here for, young people to enjoy in the future, and for the protection of Canadians against floods. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Luke. So that will conclude the portion of tonight that was predetermined by the Chamber of Commerce. Well, there's some questions that were presented to each of these candidates for some time to prepare for them and to be able to do that here tonight. So now we're going to get into maybe a little bit of the harder part when you're sitting on this side of the table, the questions that come from the audience. Now, if you haven't had a chance to ask a question, and you do have a question, our Chamber Director, Juanita, is out here, and she's doing her thing, and she's going to take your questions if you have them, and she's going to hand them back to the table behind me. The questions will be vetted to ensure that they're not pointing any direction in particular, that each of these 4 candidates will have an opportunity to answer the same question, just to make it fair. Similar to the first round of questioning, there will be 2 minutes. I will prompt each candidate when there's 30 seconds remaining, when there's 15 seconds remaining, and then when it's time to cut them off, I will cut them off.
Yes, you will.
So for audience question number 1, the order will go as follows. It will be Valerie Brooks, Luc Guimond, Kathy Wagenthal, and Alec Guggenmoss. And the question, if elected, what are your party's plans for either expanding the Port of Churchill or developing the Port of Nelson River? I'll repeat the question. If elected, what are your party's plans for either expanding the Port of Churchill or developing the Port of Nelson River? Starting us off from the Green Party, Valerie Brooks.
I have to honestly say I don't know. We don't have a plan. I guess this question is talking about exporting our raw resources and having a better way to export oil and raw resources, which then I guess what I would say, my party would probably say, is we maybe want to keep them here and produce value-added items here instead of expanding a port to ship them away. If that's what the question was going after. We do believe in, our trading relationships with other countries and the fact that we need to get our products that we are trading out. So if those ports need to be expanded or they need to be worked on, that would definitely be something that we would look at. So I'm going to leave it there because I really honestly don't know what my party would do.
Thank you, Valerie. Just to be completely transparent about something, we do not allow the use of electronic devices from the 4 candidates. The questions will come from them, not from a Google search. So just candidates, just making you aware of that here tonight. You would have received an email prior to tonight in regards to that, and I'm just passing that on to you as a reminder. The question was, if elected, what is your party's plans for either expanding the Port of Churchill or developing the Port of Nelson River? For the Liberal Party, Luc Guimond.
Well, thank you for the question. Wonderful question. Much like my colleague from the Green Party, I'm not entirely sure what our policy is. However, I would say that it would be consistent, the development of these ports, with our plan to diversify our markets. It would open up another shipping route to get our natural resources and other products to the world, whether that be to Europe or to Africa. And that's something that Mark Carney has been very clear about in the Liberal Party, that we want to diversify our markets, and to do so is to have other ways to get it out of the country, which would most likely include a port in the 2 ports that were mentioned. Thank you.
Thank you, Luke. If elected, What is your party's plans for either expanding the Port of Churchill or developing the Port of Nelson River? From the Conservative Party of Canada, Kathy Wagenthal.
Thank you very much, and thanks for that correction. It's something having this phone up here to keep track of when it's my turn, and I take responsibility for that. The Port of Churchill and Nelson, these are really important opportunities that Canada is getting, and it's been something in the works for a very long time to open up the north and to be able to ship other opportunities. Up there, Port Churchill is it's not a very deep port, whereas the other is significantly deeper, and I believe that there's a plan to work with both of those locations for different purposes. And also, the very fact that we've been talking about the need to, yes, conserve and protect our north, but also to give them the opportunity to develop resources up there, there has, as a result of Pierre's conversations around these plans, invested interest from private funds to make a difference in those ports. And that's what we want to see. We don't want to see the government taking your tax dollars and having to invest them to do these things that need to be done, but to see that confidence growing again in Canada, to have these opportunities to transport our goods and services up north and out to the rest of the world is very positive. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. All right, if elected, what are your party's plans for either expanding the Port of Churchill or developing the Port of Nelson River? From the Libertarian Party, Alec Guggenmoss.
Thank you. The government should not spend our tax dollars on building ports. However, I and the Libertarian Party would make it easier for these ports to be made anyways, just naturally with our policies. By cutting regulations and streamlining other regulations, we would make it easier for private investors, whether it's people or businesses, to be able to build these ports and build the surrounding infrastructure, whether it's railroads or other transport, to be able to utilize these ports and its ability to reach other markets faster. But unlike most parties, we understand that your tax dollars are better spent by you than by the government. Because if there's anything that the government's good at, it's not being good at building infrastructure efficiently, cheaply, or without treading on private property rights. Thank you.
Once again, we'd like to welcome our viewers tonight that are watching this on AccessNow TV and listeners tonight that are taking this in live on 98.5 The Rock. We welcome you all, and we welcome you all here again into the Anne Portneuf area here at the Yorkton Regional High School. All right, audience question number 2. The order in which this will be answered will be Kathy Wagenthal, Valerie Brooks, Alec Guggenmoss, and Luc Guimond. And the question: with the provinces controlling healthcare budgets, how will your party help with the doctor shortages? I'll repeat the question. With the provinces controlling healthcare budgets, how will your party help with the doctor shortages we are currently facing? First up, for the Conservative Party, Kathy Wagenthal.
Thank you. That's a great question because it is something that is impacting all of us significantly right across Canada. Even for me personally with family members, it's a real challenge to find those doctors. The reality is they're here. A number of them are here. We have at least 20,000 doctors, qualified doctors in our country that are not serving within their profession because we have made it so difficult for them to be able to jump through the hoops. And Pierre is very committed to making sure that we have what's called a Blue Seal certificate program to ensure that people who want to come to Canada and have a profession in healthcare, as an example, where we really need the help, that they will be able to do that as seamlessly as possible. We have an individual from South Africa who's been a locum here in Yorkton for years and years and years, and when needed, he would simply go through the process again of coming into Canada, the system knowing that he comes and what he does. And when he tried to come in 2016, he was told he had to start the process all over again, at which point he threw up his hands and went to the States. We need to be far more welcoming and supportive. Also, our systems of our methods of choosing doctors to study here as well within our own university system has to be opened up. There are many Canadian young people who just simply don't make that cutoff, that end up going to other countries to study, and then they aren't allowed to come back in and work because there's a limit on how many foreign students can be part of the system based on the governing bodies within our medical system. So we have a lot to do, and Pierre will take care of it.
Thank you, Kathy. With the provinces controlling healthcare budgets, how will your party help with the doctor shortages? For the Green Party, Valerie Brooks.
So this is a pretty big issue across Canada. We've been hearing it all over the news. The Green Party opposes healthcare privatization, and that, I think, is the direction we're heading in this province for sure. We believe healthcare must stay public and universal and accessible to all. So we would enforce the Canada Health Act. That means no for-profit clinics, no extra billing, no user fees, things like that. We'll make sure that the federal money that is being transferred is supporting public healthcare. We also want to see an increase in federal health transfers. Provinces must use this money for public delivery, and clear conditions need to be put on that money and accountability for that money. So, we want to see shorter wait times. We want to see more access for rural health in this province. We want to see more doctors. That money could be, we need to make provinces accountable for that money. So we want to reform the Canada Health Transfer to make it fairer so that rural and remote areas will get the support they need. No community should be left behind, no matter where you are. So we want to, obviously everybody wants to reduce the stress on the system, and we want to train and hire more doctors, nurses, and health workers to help fix staffing issues, of course, and increase public health care to include mental health, pharmacare, dental care, all that kind of stuff. But supporting culturally safe, trauma-informed care is also important, and money needs to be spent on that as well. So, thank you.
Thank you, Valerie. With the provinces controlling healthcare budgets, how will your party help with the doctor shortages? From the Libertarian Party, Alec Gugemas.
Thank you. And this is going to come as a bit of a whiplash to all of you. But the Libertarian Party would abolish the Canadian Health Act. And you might ask, well, why? It's quite a different answer. Because right now, the Canadian Health Act holds all of our provinces to one strict script. Their budgets are held by it, and their ability to improve their healthcare systems are held by it. We live in a vast country with a lot of different situations, issues, and regions within it that all need different amounts and different types of care. And right now, our provincial governments are being held back by this cookie-cutter health act that we have set across our nation. By getting rid of the federal government in healthcare, it'll allow our provincial governments to better use their funds, be able to implement private investment, which will then take demand away from public health care, complementing it, and will allow better usage of technology. Right now, our provincial healthcare systems are held back from new ideas and new technologies that they could be implementing now to help our very vast amounts of healthcare issues. Thank you.
Thanks, Alex. All right, the question was, with the provinces controlling healthcare budgets, how will your party help with the doctor shortages? For the Liberal Party, Luc Guimond.
Thank you for the question. Although it's not really a question about budgets, actually. It's more a question about about healthcare transfers. Rather, actually, it's about how do we work with provinces and territories to get their medical colleges to actually validate the doctors, as was mentioned, who are already here, whether they be driving taxis or other things, immigrants who are doctors from other countries. It's not a question about budgets. It's a question about medical colleges being small c conservative and not wanting to let people in to practice. And so we need to work with provinces and territories to get these medical colleges to open up, to allow some sort of way for these doctors to get accredited in Canada and not start back at zero, which is such an unfortunate reality that has been happening. And actually Saskatchewan is leading the pack and is a model that other provinces and territories should be following. But something else that needs to be happening is that we need to be opening up and building new medical schools across the country, and that is something that the Liberal Party is also proposing this election, because we do need to have more homegrown doctors. But really, what's at this question about this doctor shortages with all these immigrants who happen to have a medical background is that we do need to work more so with the provinces and territories to get their colleges, their medical colleges, to open up and to change the requirements to be more flexible and to change the accreditation process.
All right, thank you, Luke. Very good questions coming from the audience, and this is question number 3, and the answering of this question will follow in this order: Luc Guimond, Alec Guggenmoss, Kathy Wagenthal, and Valerie Brooks. The question: following discussions with members of the business community, the Chamber wonders if our local businesses have job vacancies because there aren't enough available people to fill the jobs, or there are not enough people to fill the vacancies, sorry. The question to you is, if elected, how will your party fix the broken immigration system? I apologize if I'm fumbling through that, it's not my handwriting. Following discussion with members of the business community, the Chamber wonders if our local businesses have job vacancies because there aren't enough available people to fill the jobs, or there are not enough people around to fill the vacancies. The question to you is, if elected, how will your party fix the broken immigration system? First to respond will be Liberal Party candidate Luc Guimond.
What a very small and non-controversial question. You know, we're looking at a very interesting job market at this time. The job market has contracted. We have higher unemployment than we have had due to numerous factors. And something that businesses have come to rely on, and some unfortunately have been abusing this program, is the temporary foreign worker program. Now, during the pandemic, because there were a lot of people who did not want to leave their homes and did not want to go and risk their lives in service industries, the government did allow up to 30% for businesses to hire TFWs, but that has been brought down to 10% for a number of reasons, including the abuse of the system, as I mentioned. In terms of reforming the immigration system, this is quite a vast question, but if this is very much like a question that was posed to me a couple of days ago with the Saskatchewan Immigrant Nominee Program, honestly, I don't have a proper answer that I can provide, other than the fact that, look, the job market is in a weird sense, and I don't have a proper answer to provide. But yeah, I think we would continue with the policies that we had prior to the election.
Thank you, Alec. Or pardon me, Luke. Sorry. Thank you, Luke. Following discussion with members of the business community, the Chamber wonders if our local businesses have job vacancies because there aren't enough available people to fill the jobs or there aren't enough trained people to fill the vacancies. The question to you, if elected, how will your party fix the broken immigration system? On behalf of the Libertarian Party, Alec Guggenmals.
Thank you. Immigration, yes, is a very interesting subject in Canada right now, and the Libertarian Party has a pretty unique solution to that. Instead of arbitrary numbers that the different other parties will give you, we need to bring this many people in, we need to bring this many people, only train people, all that, we want to introduce a sponsorship system where people in Canada can sponsor immigrants to come to Canada, but then are responsible for those immigrants. Because right now, these arbitrary numbers cause people to come here and then end up relying on our government systems, which puts strain on everything. We would also get rid of the many unnecessary licensing that we have across many industries in this country. Right now, if you want to do very, very simple things, you have to buy a license for it. And it's mostly just buying the license for it. You're not actually having to prove that you're good at it. Instead, we need to simplify these systems and make it possible for workers to work where and in the industries that they are best trained and have the best ability to serve in. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Alec. Following discussion of the members of the business community, the Chamber wonders if our local businesses have job vacancies because there aren't enough people, available people to fill the jobs, or there are not enough people trained to fill the vacancies. Question to you is, if elected, how will your party fix the broken immigration system? From the Conservative Party of Canada, Kathy Wagentall.
Yeah, thanks for that question. That is a doozy. Truth of the matter is, in Canada, we have lost control of our immigration system over this decade. At the very beginning, when the Liberal Party and Prime Minister then-to-be Trudeau announced that he was going to bring 25,000 new immigrants into Canada within a month over Christmas time, Stephen Harper said that cannot be done. It cannot be done properly. And yet, we took some flack for saying that. And as a result, the Liberal Party did win, and they brought in 25,000 people very quickly. Now, they went to the refugee camps and took photos. But then, every individual of those 25,000 ended up being people who had already been processed and were living in Jordan, and were simply transferred over to Canada. And that has been a part of the dynamic here that has caused a lot of angst in Canada. The Century initiative that Mr. Carney supports and actually played a major role in calls for 1 million new people to Canada every year until we reach 100 million people, which is what our past Prime Minister took off on, saying that, you know, Canada is now the first post-national state, meaning we don't have sovereignty and really we don't have borders. And 1 million people came into this country prior to this election a few months earlier and caused great chaos. We will get control again of our immigration system so that it is something that actually existing immigrants will be proud of, because many of them have said to me, we came here the right way and now we can't find jobs because these people are being given the priority by the government. I even know of businesses that have said, I got a notice from the government saying, would I like to hire some people in that group because they would help to pay their salaries. That's not the way to run our immigration or our nation.
Following discussion with members of the business community, the Chamber wonders if our local businesses have job vacancies because there aren't enough available people to fill the jobs, or there are not enough people trained to fill the vacancies. The question to you is, if elected, how will your party fix the broken immigration system? From the Green Party, Representative Valerie Brooks.
Well, I had the luxury of going last this time, so I was able to go through my platform and find our immigration policy, which is about 4 pages long. I won't read it to you, but Some of the highlights are immigration must be planned and responsible. And what we want to do is strengthen communities like Yorkton and communities in our riding that could use workers by investing in provincial immigration settlement programs, expanding funding for language training, employment support, and multicultural community building, ensuring accreditation bodies, modernize foreign credential recognition, allowing faster integration into Canada's workforce, increase funding for skills training programs, prioritizing sectors facing chronic labor shortages, require professional associations to adopt faster, more transparent foreign credential assessments. You know, these are all things that we can do if we work together. So if the federal government and the provincial governments and the municipal governments work closer together on this issue, we can come up with solutions that work quickly and effectively for everyone. I mean, we go on and on. There's a whole bunch of ideas in this platform that we can create the Canada that we want to create, taking care of businesses' needs of workers, taking care of immigrants' needs to be settled quickly into the communities. We just need to cut some of the red tape and fighting over how to do it. So my question, and I'm going to sound like a broken record tonight too, is we need to start working together and stop fighting with each other about how best to do these things. And we will solve these big issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Valerie. All right, moving right along, we are now going to go into audience question number 4. The order in which they will respond, the candidates will respond to this question, will be Alec Guggenmoss, Valerie Brooks, Luc Guimond, and Kathy Wagenthal. And this is the question. If elected, will your party invest in our security forces, including the RCMP, CSIS, and the military? Repeating, if elected, will your party invest in our security forces, including the RCMP, CSIS, and the military? First up, from the Libertarian Party, candidate Alec Guggenmoss.
Thank you. One of the few things that the Libertarian Party believes that the federal government is responsible for is the protection of the rights of Canadians. And this includes protecting us from foreign threats. So yes, we would invest in our military, because right now I can tell you, not looking so good. Instead of spending money, and vast amounts of money, on the many useless things that the government likes to spend our money on, whether it's corporate welfare or foreign aid or funding foreign wars overseas, we can instead invest this money into our military so that we can protect all of our shores, whether it's the Arctic or the Pacific or the Atlantic, and we can also put this money into protecting our shipping lanes overseas, and only protecting our shipping lanes only overseas. This can be done with an incredibly small amount of money. Instead of having the income tax and all the other taxes, this can be funded alongside our courts and our police system with only the money that comes in with GST, until we can eventually get this to where we as Canadians can voluntarily fund our military, our courts, and police. Thank you.
Thank you, Alec. If elected, will your party invest in our security forces, including the RCMP, CSIS, and the military? Green Party candidate, Valerie Brooks.
Thanks for that question. Our party definitely wants to see a balance of safety, civil liberties, and proper resource allocation for policing or security. So one of the newest ideas that were released this election was a development of a civil defense corps, 120,000 recruits to be trained up to help with civil liberties and border protection, things like that, but also to be deployed in times of crisis like environmental disasters, fires, things like that, that we've been using our military to do. We definitely believe and support the restructuring of the RCMP to help the force focus more on their federal duties, such as national security and organized crime. And we'd lessen the RCMP's role in community policing. Funding will shift from that towards social services and mental health support instead, so that our plan aims to boost public safety by tackling the root causes of crime and improving policing efficiency through independent oversight and the national use of force standards, basically. So collaborating with provinces and municipalities and Indigenous communities, we want to build community-led policing models that meet the needs of, under-resourced police services in those communities. So it's kind of a multi-pronged approach to mitigate and help with the climate disasters, but also shift the, oh, that was the red one, I think. shift the onus around, like we don't need police in schools. We need mental health workers in schools, that kind of stuff. So
Thank you, Valerie.
Shifting the money.
And our apologies, you didn't get the 15-second warning there. If elected, will your party invest in our security forces, including the RCMP, CSIS, and the military? Conservative Party candidate Kathy Wagenthal.
Yes. One of the biggest responsibilities of our federal government is to take care of our armed forces. I have the incredible privilege and opportunity to work within the Standing Committee on Veterans Affairs. I'm the old matron of the team. I'm the only one that's been there since 2015. And it's really important that not only do we support our Canadian serving members, but also support them when they do retire or find themselves in a situation where they can no longer serve. These people are amazing. And in spite of all the challenges they face due to poor government funding, especially over this last decade again, they would still serve. And so that applies as well to our RCMP. The current government did work out a new contract with the RCMP without any interaction with the provincial governments or the municipalities that carry the weight of that in their budgets. And I can tell you, they set the pay and they backdated it to 2016, which I'm all for our RCMP getting the pay that they should have been getting. But they didn't put a dime towards it. And in the House of Commons, when we'd ask them questions, they'd say, yes, we're there, we're supporting, we're going to make sure this happens, and never invested a dime because they didn't have it. They had already spent every cent that was there. They had borrowed and they had printed the money, and still our economy struggled, and those responsibilities that should have been taken care of weren't.
Thank you, Kathy. All right, we're going to move into audience question.
Actually, I haven't spoken yet.
Oh, I'm sorry. We missed you on that one, Luke. I apologize. If elected, will your party invest in our future our security forces, including the RCMP, CSIS, and the military?
Yes, but I can elaborate a little bit more than that. Yes, we, of course, will be investing in our security forces. We have committed to reaching our 2% NATO target by 2030. And, this is something that we are well on our way to doing. And a reminder that the Conservatives, when we took over from them in 2015, had funding for the armed forces at less than 1%. And so This is something that we have been working hard towards over the past number of years, and we are quite close to hitting our 2% target. Part of this does include creating a new base in the far north with buy-in from territorial leaders to protect all aspects of our territory because we are a sovereign country and we are very proud of our independence as a country and our sovereignty and our unique identity on the world stage. Thank you.
My apologies, Luke. We got mixed up there a little bit.
It's okay.
Thanks for speaking up. That's important. Okay, question number 5 from the audience. Answering this question, Luke, you're going to get to go first. Valerie Brooks second. Alex Guimond will be fourth, and Kathy will be the fourth. Will be fourth. So Luke, Valerie, Alec, Kathy, in that order.
Yeah.
We're good?
Yes.
Okay. There appears to be an appetite for the Western provinces to become more independent of the federal government. This could greatly impact the business community. Does your party support or oppose more independence from the federal government? I'll repeat that question. There appears to be an appetite for the Western provinces to become more independent of the federal government. This could greatly impact the business community. Does your party support or oppose more independence from the federal government? First up, Liberal candidate Luc Guimond.
All right. As I mentioned earlier, something that we would like to see is that, or reinforce, is that we are one economy, not 13. So rather than creating more barriers between regions of this country, we should be taking down barriers so that there can be more free flow of in our economy and of Canadians from province to province, territory to territory, and all the different configurations. No, the Liberal Party of Canada supports a collaborative form of federalism. This part of the country is very important to the Liberal Party of Canada. We have not forgotten about Saskatchewan or the Western Canada, and we would actually like a much more integrated economy so that we operate as one country, one economy, rather than 13 individual ones. Thank you.
Thank you, Luke. There appears to be an appetite for the Western provinces to become more independent of the federal government. This could greatly impact the business community. Does your party support or oppose more independence from the federal government? Green Party candidate Valerie Brooks.
We strongly oppose it. Greens believe Canada is stronger when all levels of government cooperate instead of compete. We believe in transforming how we govern the country and want to actually replace the First Minister's meetings with a different idea, a Council of Canadian Governments, a bold collaborative forum where federal, provincial, territorial, municipal, and Indigenous governments work as equal partners. So again, just to beat a dead horse or repeat a record again, the only way we're going to be stronger as a nation is if we start working together and our levels of government start actually treating each other with more respect. And so together we want to set national priorities and tackle the big challenges, you know, because we have some big challenges coming to us, you guys. Climate change, healthcare, housing, reconciliation, economic justice, all of these things are wound up in Canada. And I mean, if we're proud to be Canadians, haven't this last few weeks or months of Trump, you know, threatening our sovereignty, haven't we bound together and started buying Canadian and started, you know, elbows up together and, you know, and all this stuff? So if that's how we feel about Canada, why don't we start actually working that way in Canada? Why don't we start working together to create what we all can be proud of? So that's my answer there.
Thank you, Valerie. There appears to be an appetite for the Western provinces to become more independent of the federal government. This could greatly impact the business community. Does your party support or oppose more independence from the federal government? From the Libertarian Party candidate, Alec Guggenmoss.
Thank you. I would say the Libertarian Party is pretty neutral on the subject. However, provincial independence, as you would say, sort of dealing with their own stuff, would come natural with the Libertarian Party implementing the policies that it supports. We have a system in Canada where the provincial governments are responsible for certain things and the federal government is responsible for other things. But right now our federal government decides that it really wants to put its fingers in the responsibilities of our provincial governments. And I believe that it does not have that role. Our provincial governments have unique challenges due to the vast diversity of our country, being the second biggest country in the world. And they are better suited to dealing with these issues than the federal government. The federal government should stick to nationwide responsibilities like defending the rights of Canadians, and the provincial governments can work on the things that impact them as provinces. So yeah, I wouldn't say we explicitly support any sort of more independence of provinces, but it will just come naturally. Thank you.
And thank you, Alec. There appears to be an appetite for the Western provinces to become more independent of the federal government. This could greatly impact the business community. Does your party support or oppose more independence from the federal government? Conservative Party candidate, Kathy Wagenthal.
Thank you. So the question is, do I support more independence for the provinces? I would say what I support is their right to the independence that they should have and that has been given to them to be able to fulfill the responsibilities at that provincial level. You know, any system has its strengths and weaknesses. And in this case, I believe that our provinces have faced an awful lot of interference from the federal government, and it has caused a great deal of unrest and division in our country that simply should not exist. Just as a little example, I'm from out west, and I talk about out east, and my son-in-law, who's from Prince Edward Island, made it clear that Ontario is not out east, right? But central Canada. But you know, what I've had to say to folks here that are part of rural Canada, I have learned that Ontario, when it comes to the vast majority of that province, it is rural. They have the same concerns as we have about carbon tax, about firearms, about fertilizers and systems of controlling over how they grow their plants. Everything like that we have in common. So there are things that really should be bringing us together, that this government has caused a great deal of angst across our nation that needs to be repaired. And that is part of what we as the Conservative government will do. Enough of this. Talking about our armed forces again. Pierre has said clearly, we will have a warrior culture, not a woke culture. Armed forces across this nation just stand up and applaud. It's time for us to get back to focusing on what is important to us as a nation, and also to affirm what each of our provinces have to offer. I'm a proud Canadian.
Thank you, Kathy. All right, we're going to move on to the next audience question. The answers will come in this order: Alec Guggenmoss, Kathy Wagenthal, Luc Guimond, and Valerie Brooks. The question: if elected, what kinds of investment will your party make to ensure Canada's supply chains are not disrupted? I'll repeat that. If elected, what kinds of investments will your party make to ensure Canada's supply chains are not disrupted? Libertarian candidate, Alec Guggenmoss.
Well, I guess I'm going to join our Green Party candidate in saying that I'm just going to end up beating this poor dead horse. The Libertarian Party would not take your tax money and spend it wherever the government thinks it needs to be invested. Well, we're instead, to guarantee that things need to go where they need to go, we're going to get the federal government out of the way. Right now, blanket policies from our federal government impact very different situations across our nation. Every answer I'm probably going to give is going to be right around the fact that the federal government should not be involved in a majority of what it's involved in. We need to get the government out of the way, get rid of these unnecessary regulations that are set mostly just to get votes and to pick favorites in the marketplace. And we need to allow the market and the Canadian people to get trade, whether it's goods interprovincially, locally, or internationally, where they need to go and where they are best going to get the money back here in Canada. Thank you.
Thank you, Alec. If elected, what kinds of investments will your party make to ensure Canada's supply chains are not disrupted? Conservative Party candidate Kathy Wagenthal.
That's a huge issue for our country, especially for those of us that happen to be landlocked in the ways that we are and depend so much on those systems to be able to get our products to market. And the responsibility of the federal government in this case is to provide foundations for our industries to be able to be successful and to grow and to reach those markets. So we are committed to creating a national energy corridor. And, you know, some folks say that's impossible. Think back a couple, 100 and some years. We did this thing called build a railway across this incredible nation. You know, of course they were short-sighted. They should have done two. But the reality is that we need these things in place for Canadians to be able to get their markets to their products to market, and we need to be able to be competitive as a nation. And so part of that responsibility is for the federal government to do what it can to create the basis for our economy to flourish and for investment to take place in Canada. And a part of that is actually to be part of creating a national energy corridor so that all kinds of energy and pipelines and those types of things, critical infrastructure are in place so that Canadians can dream their dreams and grow their businesses.
Thanks, Kathy. If elected, what kinds of investment will your party make to ensure Canada's supply chains are not disrupted? Liberal Party candidate Luc Guimond.
First, it will be removing remaining internal trade barriers so that we can have a nationwide supply chains that are effective. But it's also about diversifying our markets and our economic partners. This would include, for example, a $30 million investment in the agri-marketing program so that we can diversify our markets for the products that we produce here, the agricultural products that we produce here in this province. The first international trip that Mark Carney took as Prime Minister was not to Washington, D.C. In fact, it was to Europe. It was to France and to the United Kingdom, where to show that we are taking seriously the fact that we need to diversify our trading partners and diversify our markets and our allies as we face the global crises that are ahead of us, especially the one coming from our southern border. Thank you.
Thank you, Luke. If elected, what kinds of investment will your party make to ensure Canada's supply chains are not disrupted? Green Party candidate Valerie Brooks.
We actually have a really bold policy on this. Surprise. We want to create strategic reserves of Canadian resources run through Crown corporations. So basically what this will look like is that the Crown corporations will buy the raw materials at a fair market price, allowing them then to sell it back to Canadian-run and operated businesses. So it is an economic sovereignty plan, basically, by having the federal government set the price for current exports and divert our raw materials where we need them to go. So it requires minimal changes to the existing economic framework by utilizing Crown corporations and market-based purchases without creating new regulatory systems, and ensures Canadian resources are not subject to the foreign tariffs that we're seeing now. And then it allows those resources to either be held as prices rise, used domestically, or exported to reliable trading partners. So it's a bold plan, and for far too long, though, we've been like just shipping our, resources out and dependent on unstable supply chains and things like that. It will bring local economic benefits, because we're going to be creating new businesses and new jobs that would be Canadian-owned and operated, using Canadian-owned and operated, raw materials held in these Crown reserves. And then it'll stop that retaliatory tariff kind of, trade war that creates instability. So we want to create stability, a balanced approach to supplying Canadians with...
Thank you, Valerie.
You're welcome.
All right, we're going to move on to our final audience question here this evening. Now, this question is specific to taxation, and the order in which this question will be responded to is Kathy Wagenthal, Alec Guggemos, Luc Guimond, and Valerie Brooks. Again, specific to taxation. What is your plan to support small and medium-sized businesses, which are the backbone of the Canadian economy? I'll repeat the question for you. What is your plan to support small and medium-sized businesses, which are the backbone of the Canadian economy? First up, Conservative Party candidate Kathy Wagenthal.
Thank you, Chamber. Great question. It's really important that we enable our small and medium-sized businesses to succeed. And, you can't succeed if there are all kinds of limitations on your ability to perform your jobs, to be able to hire people without a whole bunch of red tape. One example, a small construction company that does a lot of work in the area came into my office. He said, Kathy, this is the amount of work I had to do, paperwork, to apply and get these jobs in the past. And it was like this thick. He said, now I'm dealing with this. So we have to make sure that this unreasonable level of red tape and permitting and whatnot that different businesses have to deal with. And we will remove 2 regulations for every one that we introduce. An example as well is the amount of time it takes to get these things done. I have 10 great opportunities to grow our mineral base and whatnot right here on this page that have been held up for years. So our small businesses are the result of individuals who take on hiring other people to enable them to provide for their families and to see our communities grow. And we have the responsibility as government simply to get out of their way as much as possible, and then also where it is needed to make it reasonable, affordable, and not onerous for them to be able to function.
Thank you, Kathy. Again, question specific to taxation. What is your plan to support small and medium-sized businesses, which are the backbone of the Canadian economy? Libertarian candidate, Alec Guggemos.
Thank you. I am super excited about this question. Taxation. We need to cut it, because that's how we support small and medium-sized businesses, is by allowing them to keep their money so they can reinvest it back into their businesses and into their communities. However, the difference between the Libertarian Party tax policy and the tax policy of the parties that are represented up here by my fellow candidates is that we actually understand that when you cut taxes, you also need to cut spending. And in the case of Canada right now, you need to cut more spending than you cut in taxes, because we are currently running a $65 billion deficit. If we want to balance the budget so that we can continue to cut taxes for these businesses and for the people, we need to be willing to do that. And I can now actually reference my fellow candidates' parties' platforms, where at the moment it's more spending. And of course the Liberals and the Conservatives are saying they're going to cut taxes. However, as long as we're in a deficit, every tax that's cut that doesn't cut spending with it causes us to take on more debt and have to print more money, which causes more inflation, which is causing our cost of living issues right now, which impacts these businesses and impacts you. So if we want to be able to cut taxes, which I think pretty much everyone here would like, we don't like to pay taxes, we need to actually bite the bullet and cut spending with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Alec. Specific to taxation, what is your plan to support small and medium-sized businesses, which are the backbone of the Canadian economy? Liberal Party candidate Luc Guimond.
Thank you for the question. We would love to see small and medium-sized enterprises succeed. It's very important. As mentioned, they are the backbone of our economy. We need to be increasing our productivity. This is something that Mr. Carney has brought up again and again, and our plan will help to increase productivity. But to do so, we do need to have supports in place so that more people can get into the economy, such as the $10 a day child care policy, which unfortunately in this province is being held up by the provincial government. We need to be encouraging more people to get into the economy, to be entrepreneurs, to start small and medium-sized businesses. And to do so, we need to offer support so that they can do so. Some of these supports also include for Indigenous-led businesses, because our economy is not just for settler Canadians and new immigrants, it's also for the Indigenous peoples who have been here since time immemorial, and we need to reduce barriers for them to enter into the economy as well, which is why we will be providing supports for Indigenous-led businesses so that everybody can succeed when they enter into the economy. Thank you.
Thank you, Luc. Specific to taxation, what is your plan to support small and medium-sized businesses, which are the backbone of the Canadian economy? The Green Party candidate is Valerie Brooks.
So Greens are really committed to creating stronger local communities, local municipalities, where the supply chain is very close, things like that. But one of the things we realize is in those communities, the small businesses need to be supported as well. So we are committed to expanding access to capital for startups and small and medium-sized enterprises. We are committed to reducing the paperwork burden on small businesses and streamline tax reporting. Our policies encourage the continued transition to a green economy through financial support for local startups and clean tech adoption. And we're committed to an equitable economy, one that lifts every Canadian up. So through training and funding initiatives, our policies nurture businesses run by Indigenous, Black, and women entrepreneurs. We're going to make sure that small businesses get a bigger piece of the federal pie. And under the Green Party, a significant portion of federal contracts will be awarded to small businesses, and businesses owned by underrepresented groups will receive their fair share. So, small businesses are the core of our communities, and it's time that we gave them the support they deserve. We would hold the small business tax rate at 9% on the first $500,000 of active income. We would expand or continue, streamline approvals for small and medium enterprises to adopt new technology, ensuring they remain competitive. Ensure new legislation considers the impact on small businesses. We want to expand green and inclusive entrepreneurship and enhance small business access to federal contracts. Thank you.
Thank you, Valerie. So that will conclude the question part of tonight. We will now move on to the closing comments from each of our candidates. Similar to their opening remarks tonight, this will be changed, though. This will be 2 minutes versus the 3 minutes they had when they started. So this will be 2 minutes, and candidates, I will give you the same warning, and you will receive the same warning for the cards that we did throughout this question portion. You are allowed 2 minutes. And the order in which we will hear our closing comments tonight are Alec Gugemau, Valerie Brooks, Kathy Wagenthal, and Luc Guimond. You could come up here to the podium. We'll invite you to come back to the podium for this portion, and we'll call on Alec Gugemau, Libertarian candidate.
I wrote this statement expecting this forum to go a certain way, and it did. Out of the 4 candidates and parties represented here today, 3 gave similar answers and 1 didn't. Let me explain. While, just like they have for their entire existences, the other candidates and their parties approach policy making and solving issues with the same mindset they always have. How can the federal government use its power and force to get into things and try to solve every issue, even if it's better solved by something else? This is the line of thinking that has gotten us where we are. I ask you to think to yourself, how efficient is the government at almost everything remotely positive it tries to do? If your answer is it's not efficient and the federal government's decisions always have long-lasting, widespread, potential negative impacts, that's the same result I come to. As you have heard from me today, I and the Libertarian parties answer most issues with a hands-off approach. Getting the overbearing federal government out of the way of you, your neighbors, your communities, organizations, municipal governments, provincial governments, and the market from actually solving the issues that plague Canadians. We understand that outside of a very few select things, there is always some organization of people more suited to solving these issues than uninformed blanket policies from the federal government. Once again, I am Alec Gugemau, your Libertarian Party candidate. I hope that even if you don't choose to vote for me, that my campaign makes you have a good long thought on how involved the federal government should be in you and your neighbors' lives. Because if elected or not, I will still be here fighting for true freedom and liberty. Thank you.
Next up, Green Party candidate Valerie Brooks.
I stand here before you today asking you to be brave, to believe in a future for Canada and this riding that is possible and attainable. I'm asking you to think differently about the importance of your vote, think differently about the Green Party, and think differently about power and how the traditional parties have held on to power and have used their power. If we truly believe that we are stronger together and have more in common than pulls us apart, it's time we started voting that way. Reject the notion that change is not attainable and that we can't possibly do things differently than we've always done them, and embrace the idea of real change this election. Change that puts people and the planet first before billionaires and corporate interests. Change that is centered on good policy, transparency, and ethical governing. Change that creates collaboration to work through the challenges that are coming our way. Change that stops the hate and gives people a hand up with dignity. If we truly believe in Canada first, if our elbows are really up together against common threats, then voting for something should be the ballot box issue every election, rather than feeling like your only choice is to vote against something. So this election, vote for electoral reform. Vote for the environment. Vote for a circular green economy. Vote for fair taxation. Vote for climate action. Vote for better health care. Vote for human rights. Vote for a representative that will work with honesty and transparency. I humbly ask for your vote this election, and together we can create the change we need to evolve into a greater, more resilient nation. For more information on anything I've spoken about tonight, please go to greenparty.ca for specific details about our policies, platform, and vision for the future. I'm Valerie Brooks, Green Party.
Thank you, Valerie. Conservative Party candidate, Kathy Wagenthal.
Well, first of all, I want to thank my friends up here. It's fun. It really is. It's a challenge, no question. Afterwards, I go, oh, I should have said that. But I do really seriously want to thank them. There are elements of everything that has been said tonight from you that I agree with. And everything that has been mentioned as far as the things that Valerie spoke of that we need to focus on, I totally agree. Where we differ is in how we see the best way for that to be successful in Canada. And I can tell you, no one up here on this floor is more passionate about the environment than me. They'll have trouble believing that because of how we are structured to think certain ways. I am so passionate because my farmers, I call them I get in trouble for calling certain other people my or our. But we have so much that really does bring us all together. And I think that has suffered an awful lot over these past years, partially due to government, yes, partially due to what's going on in the world, partially due to this thing called COVID that absolutely threw a monkey wrench in absolutely every family and every business, everything going on. So I just want to say that it's an incredible honor for me to represent you, if I have that opportunity again, in the House of Commons. The opportunity to serve in opposition has been beneficial to me because I understand its importance. Now I ask you to put me on the other side of the floor, and let's have a majority Conservative government. Thank you.
Liberal Party candidate, Luc Guimond.
I truly believe that we are all in this together, as one province, as one country, as one community, and let us think about what our provincial model is, a multiveris, from many people, strength. And that's truly what we need to be. Come together in one united voice for this country, to work in collaboration. We are one economy, not 13. We need to be an inclusive country where everybody can succeed and have fairness for every generation. I truly believe that it's time for the people of Yorkton Melville to send a strong, young, bilingual, and progressive voice to Ottawa, and I believe that I am that candidate, and I hope I have demonstrated that this evening. We need to be Canada strong. We need a leader who exudes strength and is respected around the world, and that leader is Mark Carney. Now, Liberals do care about Saskatchewan, and I hope I proved that. We deserve a seat around the table, and at a time as crucial as now, we do need Liberals from Saskatchewan to make sure our voice is heard. I am Luc Guimond, your Liberal candidate, and I hope that I can count on your support next Monday at the ballot box. Thank you.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I can assure you it's difficult to sit up here and take those questions, especially as you try to prepare for weeks, for months, thinking you're gonna know the answer, and the questions come out and it's completely against what you thought you knew. I commend the four of you for your resilience tonight. It's a very difficult thing to sit up there, and I also thank the audience for being receptive to everything that they heard here tonight. I would like to acknowledge one more time our Liberal Party candidate, Luc Guimond, our Conservative Party candidate, Kathy Wagenthal, for the Green Party, Valerie Brooks, and Alec Guggenmoss, our Libertarian candidate. How about a big round of applause? They are taking that sigh now, that sigh of relief that it's over, and it is a difficult place to be in. We'd like to thank once again, on behalf of the Yorkton Chamber of Commerce, our partners, 98.5 The Rock, who carried this broadcast live tonight, as well AccessNow TV and their crew for broadcasting live from here. Our executive directors, Juanita Pelegi, down in front of me here doing the timing tonight, Gurjeet Dhaliwal and Corey Werner, who are also a couple of our directors, and sitting to my left behind me, Mary Carlavalo and Bob Knox for helping out tonight. I'm Doug Forster. Ladies and gentlemen, please drive safely on your way home tonight. That will conclude the evening. Thank you.
If you'd like to share your feedback on the program you just watched, contact us today